Can you tell that I'm wearing a hat, or does it look like my head disappears above my forehead? I can't take it off because I have that type of skin where once I put a hat on, it takes 3 to 5 business days for the indentation to go away. It's okay if you don't care about this, but I thought I should share in case you're wondering why my head stops above my eyebrows. It's been a minute since I recorded. Can you tell? So hard to remember how to talk to a camera if you haven't been talking to a camera in a while, which is in itself strange. I promised myself that I was going to try and catch up on recent reads. And so that is why we are here. In case you're wondering why we are here today, it is to do a recent reads. Why? Because if I wait too long, it's too many books and it's overwhelming. So I like to do this while it is whelming, which is the incorrect usage of that word. You know that, I know that, and I'm going to keep using it. I like the mouthfeel it gives me when I say it. First things first. That one was okay. That wasn't the best crack I've had in a while, but the flavor's still there, you know? The chemicals mixed with carbonation, that's what I'm here for. I am Mrs. Pizza, in case you were wondering. Winnie, our cinematographer and director, is right there in her spot, and cheese, surprise, surprise. There she is. There's the cheese. Cheese currently has on her Christmas festive collar and bow. Winnie has on her festive Christmas collar, but I can't find her bow, which is a tragedy. I know that you want to be full-blown decked out for the Christmas season, Winnie. Can you just hear her tail? You want to come say hi? No, you just want to move the tripod a little bit. These are my hands. If you want pets, you got to come to me. You got to come to me, girl. Before I get incredibly sidetracked, because honestly, that's what I like to do. Immediately get sidetracked. It's the way my brain works, and I'm pretty sure I'm undiagnosed something or other. We are here to talk about books, so let's do it. I will start this by saying, if you ever wondered what it's like, hi, thanks, no thanks. Your tail is just doing some damage to the drape. Do you want to go do a lay down somewhere? You want to sit on the tripod? You're the star. I don't know what we're doing. Let me do this, and then I promise to spend the rest of the 24 hours of this day petting you. Does that seem okay? Does that seem okay? Perhaps, can we do that? You need the entire day to be devoted to Winnie pets. If you ever wondered what it's like to be the moodiest mood reader, let me tell you, it's how I live my life. And I know no other way. I feel like this grouping of recent reads is quite the testament to I read what I feel like. And sometimes that is just chaotic when you go back through. I cannot sum myself up as a reader other than to say it's all over the place and I'm having fun. That being said, here we go. Buckle up, kids. The first book we're going to talk about is Patricia Wants to Cuddle. I picked this up because it said it was like a love story, but a horror story, and Patricia's just here to cuddle. This is the story of a group of women. Our main character is a contestant on a Bachelor-esque type dating show. She has made it to the final 3, and we spend time with the top 3 girls in this dating show. They're trying to win the show by winning the heart of this absolute asshole. He's such a loser. And our main character knows he's a loser, but opportunities that arise from winning the show are like with any reality TV show and dating TV show. We all know they go on it to get social media famous, right? We know that if they actually find a relationship, that's just a fun byproduct of them going on to become famous. We get that, right? So in this story, it is a very campy, over-the-top horror where we are following this group of women as they are taken to a secluded mountain on this secluded island where there was some tragedy years prior. There's a little bit of queerness to this. I will say the most disappointing part for me is that we know about Patricia and her need to cuddle from the beginning. If this story did not let us know what was going on until much later, I feel like it actually would have had a little bit of suspense. But because we know Patricia exists, it takes away from a lot of the momentum. This was a fun, silly, good time about these kind of caricatures of people being stuck in this secluded wooded area and then something slashery, monstery happening. It was fine. I liked it just fine. I thought it was silly and good, but nothing that I feel like I must scream everyone should read this. It was more like it gave what it was supposed to be giving. I'm just disappointed that even the title kind of gives away the most fun part. The next book I picked up after that is, I feel like it's a temperature test. If you ever watch my videos and you are wondering how all over the place I am, like there's a little bit of everything in there. And sometimes it's Ruby Dixon fantasy monster romance nonsense. I unapologetically am a Ruby Dixon fan. If you don't know who Ruby Dixon is, do you know what Ice Planet Barbarians is? There's about 7 million books in the Ice Planet Barbarian series. It was very popular a couple years back. I'm a big fan of Ruby Dixon's fantasy romance. The best one I have read above and beyond all the others, Bound by the Battle God. If you are looking for a fun and funny and spicy fantasy romance, so much fun. Such a different take on a fantasy romance. Anyways, I read By the Horns. This is the second book, the first book being Bull Moon Rising, in this fantasy monster-y romance series by this author. These books, like, they're so much fun. This is giving like cotton candy Lisa Frank. These colors are amazing. These books are taking place in a fantasy world where there is this thing called the Artifactual Guild or Artificers Guild, something like that. An entire city has been built on the bones of a previous city that had magic. The current civilization does not have its own magic. Hello? Should we answer it? It's spam. He better not call back. I think he's going to call back. He better not call back. Okay. The city doesn't have any magic of its own, so they have to dig down into the ruins of the previous civilization to extract magical artifacts that they then can use. They have a group of people in a guild. Their whole job is to do these expeditions, digging down into the ground, collecting these artifacts. There is money and power tied up with this. In the first book, we are introduced to this world and kind of how the Artifactual Guild is very much a boys' club when our main character tries to join it, and she is a girl from a noble house whose only dream is to join these people on their expeditions into the earth and learning and science and scholarly stuff. And she falls in love with another member of the guild who just happens to be a minotaur. So he's got a cow face. Man's got a bull face. So in our second book, we are following Gwenna, who is a character that is introduced in the first book. She was originally the housekeeper and is the best friend of our female main character from the first book. Gwenna is trying to make her way in the world. She doesn't want to spend her life just being a maid. So she has followed her best friend / former employer to this great big city. And she's trying her best to make it as one of these people that does the expeditions because it will change her lot in life. In the opening of this book, something very, very spicy happens between her and Raptor, another Minotaur, another guild member, and these two have this tension immediately between them as they're both working to compete against other people to be members of the Artifactual Guild. Our main characters have a very spicy encounter in the very, very beginning, and there's a lot of funny moments and a lot of tension, and I was really kind of like grossed out a little bit in the first book by how much time was spent describing like what kissing a cow would be like, because come on, like I can't even know. I had a lot of trouble with that. For some reason, it didn't bother me as much in the second book, but maybe that's because we didn't spend nearly as much time describing what this man's cow face was like. We just kind of moved on from there. There is a lot of world building that is done in the first book. So unfortunately, I don't think you can just skip the first book entirely. I think you need it. This is a romance series that's a little more interconnected, where I feel like a lot of romance series, you can kind of pick and choose, and there's enough backstory in each book to kind of catch you up. I think you should read this in order if you're at all interested. I liked this one a lot. Here's my caveat to this, and I wrote kind of a ranty review about this. I read this in about one sitting. It's not that it's that short. It's not really long, but I had a cold and I was stuck in bed, and nothing will get you through those fever-induced hours like a Ruby Dixon fantasy romance. This showed up for me at just the right time, and I really enjoyed it. But I've been noticing a lot more in traditionally published romance books, especially fantasy romance books, because I think they're assuming that the people reading these aren't heavy fantasy readers per se, but are more romance readers wanting to get into fantasy romance. There is an incredible amount of repetition in these books. I understand the need to repeat a fact that has taken place 200 pages prior, refresh the reader's memory on something like that, but something that is happening consistently throughout the book, and every 20 pages, I'm having to be reminded of something that's happened, It drives me absolute bonkers. Now, I know I read this in a day, so I probably retained a little more knowledge than somebody was reading it over several days or a week, and they needed to be refreshed probably a little more often because there was more time between those pages. I can pay attention, and I will pay attention, and there's several different ways to revisit something instead of constantly beating me over the head with it. The example I used in my review is our main character in the first book goes into this story with the name Asbeth, but part of the process of becoming one of the people in this guild is you get a new guild name. Asbeth has a new name that she has chosen for herself. Our main character, Gwenna, is really struggling with Asbeth having a new name. Understandable. She's known this person for a very long time with one name. She's going to slip up and accidentally call them their dead name, even though it doesn't have that same connotation, right? It isn't as negative. They didn't choose a new name because they no longer had that identity. It's more of a part of transitioning into a member of this guild. But this person, like Gwenna, is constantly talking about how her name's not Asbeth anymore. It's this. I need to remember that it's not Asbeth anymore. It's this. She has this monologue internally, externally, every other freaking page, it feels like, for the first half of this book. There are ways to do this, to say it the first time and then have the character say the name wrong, immediately apologize, stumble over it, and then get it right. There's ways to do this in a more natural, realistic fashion, because if somebody said in real life, constantly reiterated that, good Lord, they would be insufferable to be around. That being said, I don't want you to think I dislike this book. It's just something I'm seeing a lot in traditionally published books right now. And I don't know if I'm just hyper aware of it because it's something that kind of annoys me, but I get that not everybody has the pattern recognition that I might have. It is one of my superpowers. And again, pretty sure I'm undiagnosed something, but it's something that drives me crazy. And it was very present in this book. That being said, I liked this. I like this author's work. I had fun with this. I read it super fast. If you're at all interested in a fantasy monster romance series with the best color covers you have ever seen, and I would recommend, absolutely. Continuing on with I Had a Fever, so I felt like monster romance, because I'm sorry, when I don't feel good, monster romance makes me feel better. I don't know what that says about me, but whatever it says is true. I read The Artist in the Orc. This is book 10 in Finley Fenn's, this author's Orc Sworn series. Now, hold my hand while I tell you this. If you are interested in picking up Orc romance, this is not where you start. Years ago, I wrote a review when I read my first book within this series. This is something you work up to. This is not the kiddie pool. This is the deep end. As far as orc romances go, I would say as this series has gone along, the world has been built so well. I know the beats of how orcs work in this world. The different clans and the mountain and the people, our adversaries who we're fighting against. And so again, I think that this probably wouldn't be a great starting point for this series as well. But you actually don't have to start at the beginning. I didn't start at the beginning. I started a couple of books in. I've picked and chose between there, but they all kind of work together. This is the most recent book that I have read in this series, and it's a doozy, and I gave it 4 stars, had a great time. I hope I've given you enough warning, though. If you were like, I'm thinking about dipping my toes into orc romance, it's like, girl, don't start here. No. Start over in the baby pool. Start with what is the name of that series? Well, there's a Ruby Dixon orc romance, but I don't know. That one is just silly. Once you've entered into orc romance, there's no turning back. Anyways, this is the story of Daisy. She's an artist. She's in a horrible, toxic relationship with this man. He writes, he's an author, but he does it involving, he writes nonfiction about plant life, things like that, animals and plants. And she is the illustrator for all of his books. He's had a lot of success. These two are in a romantic relationship. But not only does he basically keep that a secret from most people, but he's actively cheating on her. And she has just been so gaslit and beat down over the years that she's become kind of compliant in this relationship. She just exists here, and she just feels so awful. And one day he just shows up with another woman into their own apartment, has pushed so far and so hard. He basically knows that he can do anything and she won't leave. And she's had enough. and she grabs some of her art supplies and escapes out into the night, spends the night in a cave, ends up getting accidentally locked in. And while she's locked in here in the pitch dark and can't see a thing, she encounters another being, an orc. She just knows that she gets a brief glimpse of this person before all the lights are gone. They have an instant connection. There's a romantic connection that happens. And then she learns that not only has she gotten romantically involved with an orc, but she's gotten romantically involved with the orc that all the other orcs are afraid of. He's menacing and dark. He has a history that's mysterious. He is unlike any of the other orcs in Orc Mountain. And Daisy is in a really interesting position. You should know going into these are dark romances and they are orc romances. These are not sweet, lovely, and fluffy, although there are moments that will like absolutely gut you. These are so well written. The atmosphere is great. This author has created an entire world with an entire like societal system to these creatures. I had a great time. All right, that's enough. I was feeling better. I moved on from my monster romance moment. The next book I picked up after that was Blood on Her Tongue, and I freaking loved this book. This is a book that I didn't really know much going into it. I believe in the synopsis. It gives you the information that we are following Lucy, who has received very concerning letters from her twin sister, Sarah. Sarah is married and lives out in a very secluded estate. It's like a big stone building surrounded by moors. And Sarah and her husband, a few weeks prior, when they had people digging up like peat in their land, they found a bog body in the bog. They removed this body from the bog, which was, in hindsight, a bad idea. But Sarah has been drastically deteriorating since this bog body showed up. Lucy goes to where Sarah is, concerned for her sister, and we spend the majority of this story with these two sisters who have such a complicated but realistic relationship. They love each other. They would absolutely die for each other, but there is jealousy there. There is secrets there, but they care for each other so wholeheartedly. This was something that you think you're getting one thing, you're getting something slightly different. The atmosphere of this is immaculate. We are in a giant stone house and weird is happening. Like, what is this bog body? What's happening to Sarah? What is going on? I like to say you end this book standing in your night shift on a cold stone floor as blood pools around your feet. It has just that very dark ending in a good way. I liked it. I don't know what this was. The next book I picked up after that was The Hounding, and I picked this one up not realizing that it was more historical fiction. I thought it was going to be more horror. I would say there's like the horrific element to this is the anxiety that you are feeling for this group of girls. Let me back up. I picked this up because the comp titles were The Crucible Meets the Virgin Suicide, and I mean, come on, like, who doesn't want to read that? So this is the story of a group of sisters. I believe there are 4 sisters, and they live kind of outside of a small town. Their parents died when they were very young, so they were raised by their grandparents who were somewhat affluent. But again, they are secluded from this very small rural town. The girls have been raised in a house full of love and given a lot of opportunity to be themselves, to be wild young creatures, to be loud and laugh and play games and run barefoot through the grass. They've really had a very sweet upbringing, but the town around them has all of these gender and sociological constraints that they're trying to put on these girls. And because these girls don't fit perfectly into what society deemed they should, they are suspected constantly of being the cause of any sort of misfortune that anyone comes upon. When someone starts claiming that they've heard howling in the woods, and rumors start that these girls are turning into dogs at night and running wild. There is a lot of time spent in the perspective of other villagers, especially a couple of male members of the village, that their perspective on these young girls, how they believe these young girls should act, how some of them are very entranced by the kind of pixie nature, the fey nature of these girls who were just allowed to be girls, and how the oldest of these girls knows how dangerous it is to be them, how dangerous it is to be a young girl in society with societal expectations, with predatory people looking at them, people who in one hand hate them, but then covet them in the other. It was short. It was interesting. I will say this is ambiguous. That is not a word. Ambiguous is a word. Ambiguous should be a word. It sounds lovely. It's a little ambiguous. It's not a war. It's more, you're just going to have anxiety for what's going to happen to these girls in this town as society starts to try and put its rules and repression upon them. But it's more of a historical fiction. I enjoyed it enough. I flew through it, and young girls turning into dogs. You know? And the last book we're going to talk about is The Haunting of Hill House, which is my second Shirley Jackson book, and I'm officially a Shirley Jackson fan. This is a story that has been adapted into movies, a couple movies, I think. The one that's on Netflix, the series that is by Flanagan. What is his first name? Mike Flanagan. It uses very minimally this story. I feel like it more uses some of the themes of this book over using actual like storylines and stuff like that. The one with Owen Wilson in it, kind of, not really, but kind of. That adds a whole, and the CGI in that. Can we talk about this? Wow. Anyways, we are mainly following Eleanor, who is a very sad and lonely character. She spent the majority of her adulthood caring for her mother, who was very ill. Now that her mother has passed away, her sister is basically taking advantage of Eleanor. Eleanor is just seen as, she's very lonely, but she's also very much like infantilized by everyone around her. She's not capable of being on her own. She is contacted by a man who wants to do a study in Hill House. He reaches out to a large group of people that have all had some sort of psychic phenomenon happen to them. When he sends out this letter, he gets two people that actually reply to the letters, one being Eleanor. She steals her sister's car, which is really Eleanor's car, but Eleanor's sister anyways, steals the car and drives out to Hill House because she's ready to start her life. And she goes into this haunted house with this group of people, and she gets gaslit by this house. Literally, I think my review was the loneliest character gets gaslit by a haunted house. That's what happens. The house takes advantage of everyone, especially Eleanor, because she's so ripe. She's clinging to everyone. She just wants someone to take her home and make her theirs. And she is sad and lonely, and the house is ominous and scary, and the ending is really quite sad. Reading this, it was interesting knowing, I know that Stephen King is definitely a Shirley Jackson fan, and there were some things that I was like, oh, well, that's from Rose Red, or, oh, well, I remember that in It. So you can see how these books went on to influence others. I wouldn't say this is scary, but it's definitely worth reading if you're interested. I didn't find it scary. I found it sad. You're watching Eleanor as she's gaslit like a motherfucker. Like, it's just like, Eleanor, please, girl. I know you're naive, but no. But that, kids, is where we are going to end this recent reads, because I've been talking long enough and one of my legs is asleep. But if you had fun hanging out with me and the dogs, please subscribe. I hope you're reading good books out there wherever you are, and I'd love to hear about them. Honestly, I hope that you have some sort of direction in your reading, unlike mine, which is just a whirling tornado of nonsense. But I'll see you next time. Both my legs are asleep, Winnie. Oh no.